Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is opposition. So it'll be interesting to talk about opposing points of view and how we negotiate and navigate territory where we're in the face of disagreement. But before we get started with that, let's just take a few minutes to settle in and get present. And let's take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine clear, crisp, clean oxygen just coursing into your lungs and into your bloodstream and nourishing all your cells and your organs. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress in your shoulders, your back, your neck, your hips and legs and ankles and arms. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose. And this time, imagine sparkling white light just nourishing every molecule in your body, enlivening and invigorating and revitalizing all of your being and connecting outside beyond your body into this amazing universe that we exist in. And exhale any tension and just bring yourself present, relax. And now let's just gently, softly press our palms together and softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tingling in your fingers and feel the tingling in your palms and how delicious that is. And just bring yourselves present right here, right now. So, this morning we're talking about opposition because right now there's a lot going on with political conventions and ramping up for the election and all kinds of crazy ads on all different forms of media that are really looking to create separation and I think um, foment anger and really fundamentally separation more than anything else. I just want to say that I am on Zoom this morning and on Restream, and I'm thinking that I probably am going to see your comments. So if somebody could put in a comment so that I can confirm that, that would be awesome, awesome, awesome. So, anyway, let's talk about opposition. The whole notion of opposition is opposing, right? Conflict is really the underlying uh, expectation and messaging for that word opposition. The opposition party or what hello Natalie, thank you, thank you, thank you for your comment. I know that now I can actually talk to you. That's wonderful. Hi Melody, good morning, thanks so much for being here. And we're talking about opposition, and actually really what we're talking about is how to build bridges and how to create a greater sense of connection in the face of things that we oppose and in the face of opposition to things that we want to accomplish or ideas that we have, even in the face of relationships with people that we care deeply about, where we oppose one another and we take this oppositional stance and the place of conflict. So what I'm looking at is how to find a place of deeper connection when we find that we're at odds with other people and ideas, and uh, how can we interact with conflict and difference in a way that is going to bring us closer ultimately. Now, I think, hi, Dido. Yay. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. And we're talking about opposition today, and things are working with Zoom and with restream. So all is good in the world again. Anyway, talking about opposition, I this quote, which I'm going to brutalize, is attributed, I think, to Einstein, but essentially it is, you can't solve a problem from the level in which it emerged. And I think that the key for us in the face of conflict, if we're looking to resolve rather than perpetuate the conflict, is to rise to a level, a higher level, where there is communion, where there is connection. And what I find is, for instance, I had an encounter with my brother that was really uncomfortable, and uh, what I realized out of that encounter was that his intention was really for my welfare, and my intention is really for his welfare. And so it gave, recognizing that, like rising above the level of, well, you know, he acted this way, I acted that way, whatever the dynamic was, that to rise to the next place of what our mutual intentions were, uh, enabled the ability to reconnect and communicate through our disagreement. So I'm wondering if you guys, as you're looking at places of conflict in your life, if there's a place where there's a conflict that you're experiencing, where you might be able to raise to the next level, and what would that look like? So I have another friend. Dido says, I found this. Einstein said, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Thank you, Dido. I have heard so many variations on that theme, but that's really the basic idea. And I think that this is the key to any kind of conflict resolution, is to rise to a level of higher value and higher values. So you and I may have different opinions about, who knows, let's say we have different opinions about politics. Well, how can we, instead of making an enemy of one another or an oppositional force of one another, how can you and I rise to a place where we can maybe even have a conversation and expand our views, and at least expand our respect and compassion for one another, rather than dismissing one another as stupid or wrong or bad or whatever. Uh, so, how can we create these bridges of communication? Well, with politics, the likelihood is that we really, if we rise high enough in looking at the values that drive our opinions, there is probably a common interest in in safety, in uh, our being able to care well for our families. There's got to be places that we can find commonality. And it's interesting because the tendency is to make wrong people that disagree with us, or people that don't see things the way that we see things. And I'm wondering how we might be able to collectively bring ourselves to move from this either or, right, wrong, black, white sort of climate, into one that might be more inclusive, like both and. And obviously it takes a will on both sides to be able to do that, to be able to have the willingness to detach our identities from our opinions, to explore more open heartedly with one another. But I'm wondering if you guys have any examples in your lives where you're willing to look into how to build bridges, how to create a more um, a more connected experience. Now, and one of the reasons that I'm bringing this up is because I was reading about the conventions, the political conventions, and how um, the camps are getting more and more divisive. Really, each camp is in some way or another vilifying the people in the other camp, and I don't really imagine that we can find a place of government and law in this country without that really ultimately works without finding a way to bridge our differences instead of my side wins and your side loses. I think we're so steeped into that paradigm that it's hard to see past that. And I wonder, I think it's a time for us to start engaging in creative problem solving, creative thinking about how we might create a more unified experience for ourselves and our country with so many challenges that we're facing and so many challenges that we're facing globally. So, any suggestions, any experience, personal experience where you've been able to rise to a higher level that brought about greater understanding? I'm wondering what your experience would be, either not even the political thing, but maybe in the context of family, in the context of relationship. How have you been able to move past disagreements or differences? Um, I have a friend that I adore who right now is uh, having some challenge, I guess, with our relationship, and we haven't had the opportunity to speak through it. I'm not clear about what it is that's going on actually. And so what I recognize is that our perceptions of what's happening are very different. And the thing that makes room for me to be able to give this person the space that they need to communicate with me is to be present to the love that I have for them, and to be inclusive in that love. So to recognize that the perceptions that they have are really their perceptions, not necessarily a reflection of who I am or of me, but of the dynamic between us that is their reflection. And to give space for whatever they're feeling and still hold the place of love for them. I'm wondering if you have had the opportunity to play in this realm where where you get to presence yourself to someone's upset with you from a space of love. It's often challenging because we all have triggers that get pressed, and we become reactive, and it really takes a lot of presence and commitment to remain in that space of love when someone is expressing their anger and it could be perceived as an attack. But the thing is that when we recognize that people's expressions are expressions of their internal experience, then we get to maybe hold a deeper space of love for them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that all situations will resolve with hugs and agreement. It doesn't necessarily mean even that communications will continue, but to hold the space of love, that the space of love is the space of miracles, really, where things can resolve and transform in very unanticipated, unexpected ways. What I'm remembering right now is a situation with my dad. I think I've spoken with this before. We had horrible fight. He's passed several years ago, but his birthday just passed also. So I've been talking about him and thinking about him even more than usual lately. So we had this awful fight, and I think we ended up hanging up on each other. This was years ago. And both of us can tend to be pretty stubborn people. And certainly at that time, that was really the case. And I really didn't know how to imagine that we would find reconciliation. And at the time, I did Ho'oponopono, sort of. Actually, I didn't actually do that. That practice, which I have spoken about before. I'll tell you about that in a minute. What I did was I imagined this big golden ball of love and light, just this huge, full, brilliant, glittering, glistening ball of light. And I imagined it just bursting above his head and filling him with my love, letting my love rain down on him. And, actually, now that I remember it, I might have done Ho'oponopono to it. I think that that's the case. In any case, uh, not a half hour after I did this, the phone rang and it was my dad. And all he said was, I love, love, love you. And it was it was truly a miracle because both of us were able to get off of our pedestals of right and wrong and indignation, and just to reconnect with the love that we had for one another. And let me just tell you again about Ho'oponopono. It is a beautiful, beautiful practice. It's Hawaiian tradition. There's a wonderful story about this guy who was the warden, I believe, maybe for a mental institution for criminally insane people. And he never, this could be urban legend, but it's a beautiful story. He never saw a patient. He would sit with each of their records and he would meditate and do this Ho'oponopono practice. And the story goes that eventually everyone that was in the institution was healed and free. So the way that Ho'oponopono goes is, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And so, in saying I'm sorry, it's taking responsibility for creating the circumstance as we are creators of our universe, taking responsibility for creating the circumstance that is being addressed in the meditation. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for my part in creating this circumstance. I love you, presencing ourselves to the love that we are, and really feeling that love. And thank you, ending with gratitude. And the key to Ho'oponopono, and it is powerful, powerful uh, magic, in my opinion, is really presencing yourself to the experience of each of those elements. I'm sorry, like really truly taking ownership and responsibility for your part in the matter. Please forgive me, really humbly asking for forgiveness. And um, I love you, presencing yourself to love in a very deep way. And then thank you, gratitude. And it's just such a powerful, powerful incantation, invocation, really, really powerful magic. So, all of this is to get us back to a place of creating bridges. And I'm wondering, before we wrap up, if you have any stories about where you've created a bridge, where you've created through love or ho'oponopono or some other kind of practice, where you have been able to create reconciliation or understanding or a new level of connection through your directed intention to move toward oneness and away from the perpetual paradigm of separation that really pervades our culture and our media and so much of our world. So the topic was opposition. And the thing that we get to see is that so many times when we get into an argument or we start looking at certain issues or uh, experiences in the world, that the more right we become, the more opposition we're creating, the more resistance we're creating. Opposition is resistance. And I'm not saying that all things are okay in the world. And actually, on some level, they are. But that's not typically the level that we live in. So what I'm talking about is something on the order of Aikido, which is a martial art that I have never studied. So hopefully you'll forgive me if I'm just totally misrepresenting this, but this is my understanding, is that the martial art of Aikido uses the force that's being directed by just redirecting that force. And so rather than creating opposition, like when somebody presents an idea that is not an idea that fits into your perspective in that moment, rather than saying, wow, that's a stupid idea, how about taking that energy and redirecting it and say, you know what, that's an interesting idea. What happened? How about trying it out in this menu? Or how might you be able to integrate that into what we're currently looking at? Or, so it's taking that energy and redirecting it rather than opposing it. And I think that there's the opportunity for all of us to become more artful and more present in that practice of redirecting the energy that is oppositional from ourselves or from others into a dance that has much deeper grace and that leads us into communion and community and connection with one another. So that's it for this morning. I invite you to dance uh, rather than oppose and see how that works. Maybe you can discover some new opportunities today that you might not otherwise have entertained. And with that, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And we broadcast weekdays, every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on the Facebook page for Enlightened World Network. And it's my pleasure and privilege to be here with you. I so appreciate you joining me for these conversations. And I have lots and lots of love and appreciation for you, and an invitation to go and uh, engage in more of the programming from Enlightened World Network. It's a magnificent community of heart centered, spiritually oriented folks. So, with that, I hope you'll be here to join me tomorrow. Lots and lots of love, and we'll see you again soon.